All right. Today's guest co-founded a social media agency called Sociality Squared. She runs a podcast, Creativity Squared. She's been an advisor with South by Southwest and is working on a new app and product release that I'm sure we'll get into today. So, Helen Todd, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me here, James. Really excited for our conversation.
Awesome. So I think there's a lot of parallels, kind of how you started your original like social media agency and like kind of where we're at with like the AI boom. But could you just share just kind of a brief background on like what led you to starting your social media focus agency?
Yeah, to be very honest, I was at another agency and got fired.
That's a good starter right there. That's a motivator.
So young. I was only 26 years old and like gravitated to social like a moth to a flame. And, it was kind of like, they can do this and make money. I can do this and make money too. So it was kind of it's like running a company is like running a club. This will be easy. So I kind of dived in and founded Sociality Squared in 2010. And at the time, we were probably among the first dozen ever dedicated social media agencies. So we're very, very early on in the social media industry itself. So that was really fun to see the early days and help brands like figure out how to reach community on these new platforms. And then fast forward to it was October of 2022, a friend of mine who actually works at OpenAI was visiting, and he's like, "I show you this dog fooding version of this thing called ChatGPT." And I always have creative projects. I have a bazillion projects going on right now. But we put like the beginning scene of a screenplay into ChatGPT. And as everyone knows now, it was like magic and banged out like the opening scene. It blew my mind. And then a month later, it took the world by storm. And as everyone knows, it got uh, broke the record for the most user acquisition in history of like getting 100 million users in 2 months. And it felt like the early days of social all over again, of this big disruptive technology that's going to impact everything for better or for worse. And kind of very similar to how I pounced on social media, I pounced on the Gen AI moment. And yeah, launched a podcast. There's 2 seasons up doing integrating AI into our services where it makes sense. I launched an AI meetup, co-founded that. We're the largest AI meetup in the state of Ohio right now, and then working with companies on AI adoption beyond just marketing as well.
Staying busy. I love it.
Yes, very
Amazing.
busy.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because I feel like especially like I remember when I started my career, you're like the young person who just like figure out social media because we don't want to. And I think kind of the similar kind of things happening with like AI in a ways. There's a lot of parallels of like who can just figure this out and understand how to implement it in our business. And I think there's a lot of parallels with that. But what have you seen just in terms of just to kind of just speak briefly about social media real quick? There's obviously been huge growth in that channel. You were early on in like being dedicated to it. And then there's been a huge growth in like terms of like how many channels there are, how many social media platforms and everything like that. But what have you seen has been like the consistent that's maintained throughout the entire social media marketing strategy for businesses? Like what's always worked since like day one that you still think works today? Obviously there's been changes in platform usage, but like what are things that really have like stood the test of time in the social media era?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think principle wise, the principles have been very, haven't changed at all of community building principles that you carry online of reaching people around certain interests if they're aligned with a brand and engaging with them online. And the tactics change, the platforms change, but bringing people together has not changed at all. And centering, I think actually the impetus to center humans and center community is even more important now not only post-COVID, but in this Gen AI moment, especially when the online is getting scarier with AI slop and deep fakes and, all of this is happening. And I think from just the evolution of how we think about community in general, so much of it was like just likes and follows and like that's how we build community. But I really think this moment calls us to actually get back to what does actual community mean? It's the people coming together online or offline. And I've always said that online events are the best of social media because it really bridges, using social media as an extension to reinforce offline relationships. And I think that community of thinking beyond likes and follows and the actual people and how they get together is something that we should all really focus on more than ever right now.
Yeah. So that's really pulling, like, almost pulling people even off social media to get into
Yeah.
tighter communities and groups, right? As we see, like, a lot of, like, the community apps start really popping up, and then, yeah, like, yeah, like, online live events and communities and live streaming getting really big, and I wonder if that's just, like, it makes community a little tighter because, like, all the social media channels have really become mainstream. It's like it's replaced, NBC, ABC, and all the major stations. It's like now that's what's mainstream is these big mega social media platforms that can have huge reach. So like tighter communities seems like to
Yeah.
be the trend.
Yeah, and you see, like, the mighty networks and the circles and even brands creating private communities or communities setting up instead of a Facebook group or LinkedIn group, their own private community. And we've done that with my AI meetup too, of just it's almost like not constricting, but going more local and community focused and wanting to own your community because you're at the whims of these platforms if they decide to shut down your community, those types of things, which yeah, we all know how great customer service is with Meta.
Yeah, I know. From the ad perspective, it's great too. Is anytime you get an ad disapproved or an ad account shut down, it's a fun experience. Even like I've had it, new people that are like friends, they're like, "Oh, I want to try to run some ads. Could you help me out?" And they try to run ads, and they just like ad accounts gets disapproved like immediately.
Yeah.
It's obviously to help prevent fraudsters and really scammy affiliate marketing types of black hat ad buying, but they make it not easy sometimes to actually get ads live and ad accounts approved.
Yeah, I launched an Instagram account 2 years ago as a fun thing for South by, and I was using growth tactics all above board, but because it was working so fast, I got flagged and shut down for a little
Yeah,
bit as like, "You're doing it too fast," even
yeah.
though they were all, like, the right issues, so,
You're
I
doing too good.
yeah, but I think, we're seeing such a issue with AI slop and deep fakes and it's only gonna get worse because the content is so easy to scale with Gen AI, and I'm, kind of a little worried that we're gonna have a MySpace moment where everyone loved MySpace, but it was really porn and spam that really poisoned or, didn't make it fun anymore, and if we don't get this under control for these platforms, it's not a win. Like, I use my mother as like a litmus test of like, if my mom can do it, then it can go mainstream,
Yeah.
And she looks at ads on Instagram and Facebook, and she doesn't click any of them because she thinks that they're all spam. So, the bad actors make it harder for the good actors too in these platforms.
Absolutely. From an ad perspective, that's such a like insightful view of it because I think that's why like banner ads on websites and like apps and stuff stopped working, especially like desktop ads, because there's so much spammy type of cringy ads out there. And Facebook and Google really controlled the ad environment and the ecosystem and made it higher quality to where you could really trust the ad. And those ads end up working so much better. And I think the foundation of that is really like trust and relevancy. It was like a relevant ad for a user to where they oftentimes people will comment on ads. And they don't even know it. They're like, why am I following you? I'm not following you. Like, how did I get this in my feed? They don't recognize that it's just an ad placement within their feed. Like, that's how good it is. Like, people think it's actually an organic post because it's so relevant and it looks quality. And if we lose that because of AI slop, then I think it's going to go downhill really fast. So, probably something that I my guess is all of the major social media platforms are going to have to try to manage that, right? Is that how do we mitigate AI slop and spammy content because it's so easy to produce?
Well, and I mean, Meta alone also, like, I think last year, 10% of all of the ads were actually fraudulent and scam ads that they're taking in to make money instead of like protecting the ecosystem. So I think, it does have a lot of platform, like Meta needs to step up and fix it. But, it's kind of interesting because Meta, like, they've always made, well, not always, of recent, it's easier to make ads and they do a lot of the work. It's basically what's your company and your target audience, and we'll, automate the creative, we'll automate the bubbling, we'll do all the A/B testing for you. And it's making it a lot easier for non, ad experts like yourself to go in if they don't get
Yeah,
shut down
100%.
right
It's
away.
only going to get easier, but they just bought Manus AI, which is an AI chatbot that allows you really to manage your campaigns. And they're already doing a lot, like you said, in creative and copy. They have an AI optimized ad copy. I think most of it's kind of terrible, but like you can use it to do everything faster. I think it's eventually going to get to the point to where anybody can go in and have a conversation with a chatbot and launch a campaign without actually using the ad platform at all. And there's going to be like pros and cons of being able to do that. So we'll see kind of where it goes. But I think they're going that route very quickly.
Yeah, and I think there's a fine line sometimes between AI slop and AI generated content.
Mm.
And the difference of quality there, just because AI helped with it doesn't necessarily mean it's slop either. Like the Google actually has an interesting beta platform called Pomeli, and it's really good for brands. I've only played with it a little bit, but it more or less, can create social content that's beautiful and looks great very quickly, all the brand guides and everything. And you look at that, it's like, yeah, as long as it's, commercially safe to use, which is another thing of consideration, like I would use that and it looks great and doesn't contribute to I feel like slop is just like quick, cheap,
Yes.
and prolific. It's like
Yeah.
the junk food of content. So as long as Facebook uses like the AI automation where it's not as junk foody and still quality, I think that it will actually help small businesses get more out of the ad platform. But it's a fine line to walk sometimes because you're seeing like YouTube really cut back on the AI videos that people are just like banging out for like the sake of just quantity, quantity, quantity. And then you have like OpenAI closing Sora, that was more or less an AI video slop app.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's AI is not going anywhere, but I think, defining quality and what that looks like is kind of an interesting tension that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, it has a lot of correlation with what happened in the SEO space. Is people started doing that back in the day with SEO, and I think it was like the Panda. I'm not an SEO expert, so if anybody SEO super expert out there is listening to this, I might butcher this a bit, but I believe it was the Panda update that they did back in like 2013, 2014, somewhere in there, where they downgraded if you just had all this sloppy, irrelevant content that just jam packed with keywords. Basically, people were just taking like what are their keywords they want to rank for, and they were just like jam packing it into blog content to where it was just like made no sense from a user perspective. So the relevancy was really low quality. And then they had an update in their algorithm to identify that and weed that out. And a bunch of bad actors just dropped overnight. And the ones that had good quality foundational SEO just rose up really quick. And I'm wondering if like the same thing is going to happen in the AI space or the content space around all these social media platforms is the quality content generators. Like even if you're using I think there's a proper way to use AI and just a sloppy way to use it. But the ones who are using it good are going to rise to the top.
Yeah, I agree. Because I mean, like, my podcast, I interviewed a ton of creatives that are using AI. And I mean, it's one of the joys, like, King Wallonius, who's on my 75th episode, he is, like, such a multi-hyphenate creator. Like, give him a tool, and it's just more ways for him to express, like, what's going on in his, mind
Yeah.
and stuff.
Right.
And that's, like, exciting to give these at first it was, like, Gen AI and then, the AI music. has all of these have scraping issues. But now with the agents and building websites, he's just like gravitating to every new AI tool as like an expansion of his creative playground. So that's really interesting. But I mean, to your point, or kind of what we've been talking about, like trust, whether it's on the ads or the content you're seeing, is it created by a human or AI? Like, it really comes down to the intentionality, the trust, and the use case of how people are using this.
Absolutely. My other perspective on that is that like that creative person, he already understands the creative process and like what's good and what's bad. So he can use this tool to just X 100X his output, but it's going to be higher quality work because of the input that he's putting into it. And I think that's the real big difference is that the slop is coming from people who are just have no context or relevance to what actual good creative or content is, and they're just asking a question and then getting a response and then publishing it versus actually giving it quality input that's relevant to a brand or a creator and having some real good context and navigating it to produce something good. It's kind of like it would be asking the equivalent of asking like an intern who has zero experience, like, write me a brief on a campaign or this client or this brand. Like, they're not going to have the training or the skill set. And I think that's going to be the real big divide is people who already have the skill and are strategic thinkers are going to get 10x, 100x the output if they learn how to use these platforms and they'll have like the quality output. And then people who don't are going to be like the slop content is people who aren't real experts. It's kind of like if I don't know how to code or develop, I could go into Claude Code right now and I could get some code and probably publish a site, but it's going to be a all a nothing burger compared to somebody who's an actual programmer or developer who can produce probably 100 times better output than what I can. So
Yeah.
like we could both do it, but the results are going to be significantly different between an expert and a novice.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, AI at its best, amplifies the best of human potential, but if you have the domain expertise, you're going to get so much more out of it. I kind of think of it like, if you look at the digital photography, like with the iPhone and smartphones, like, it turned everyone into a photographer, but that doesn't
Right.
mean everyone's good at photography,
Yes.
and, if you want a really good portrait, you'd still go to a real human photographer and not even use these AI ones, but I think that's, like, a good example of, like, yeah, just because you have a camera or AI doesn't mean that you're gonna be great at it, regardless. Access to a tool doesn't mean expertise or good quality content at all. And, there was one other thing I was gonna say on this front, I forget.
Yeah. I think what the other downside of it is all of the scammy sales coaching course people that are like, you could create your own marketing agency with one person and AI bot. It's like, good luck with that. We'll see what you can produce. But what have you seen as like good ways, just talking to all these agencies and from your experience, are like good ways like agencies should be incorporating AI either to their workflows or into their creative process?
Yeah, there's a lot of different approaches. Oh, I remembered what I was gonna say. I sometimes with, like, AI image generation, you gotta make sure it's commercially safe, but it kind of feels like the evolution of stock photography. Instead of
Mm,
searching, you're just
yeah.
creating it, but still stock has very yeah, it's almost like a new category of stock, but it's still got limitations of, like, stock photography has a place in content, but is it the best for everything? Not really. But, to your questions, how agencies can use it, there's, a couple different ways, like, just from, like, the admin side of the operations and finding efficiencies and productivity gains and helping you get rid of some of your grunt work on the admin side, whether that's, onboarding, financial, any type of admin thing, there's definitely a place with AI there. In terms of, like, the workflows for clients, I think it's twofold of one, using, AI, to help manage clients and the on that side. And then also helping clients and consulting clients is everyone's trying to wrap their heads around AI and, helping clients navigate it, and the different, options out there. And on the, like, how agencies can use AI for client projects, I think one, really interesting thing is building kind of these custom threads, agents, or your own custom model, but doing them per client. So as you're, like, onboarding a team, like, we do messaging guide, what you can and can't say, hashtag library, because those still have a place somewhere, brand guidelines, messaging guidelines, all those things that we've done, since the founding of our agency so that we can work and onboard team members. But training these agents to learn brands are very, very similar. So really starting to like collaborate with AI in your workflows and stuff and doing it really per brand, you're going to get a lot out of these systems. And I mean, it just unlocks a lot of tools too. Like before I went to South by Southwest this year, I went down a vibe coding lovable rabbit hole. And like I banged out 3 or 4 sites, like, in a week that would take forever to do
Yeah.
otherwise. So, not, and those were, easy landing page type of sites, easy-ish, but just what you can offer and to clients is just like really expanding too.
Got it. That's interesting. Yeah, that's actually kind of similar to what we do. Like we use Claude primarily, and we just create a project for
Yeah, yeah.
every client, right? Like that would be it, right? Is that like, and then that consolidates all the information and content
Mhm.
about that client. You can keep in one central place, and then it could learn from, and then you could kind of strategize with it as a kind of a coworker, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And then the next phase, which honestly I still need to do a deep dive on this, is then going to Claude Cowork and then creating agents where then like maybe even within a client account, different agents have different roles. And then you start having agents collaborating
Hmm.
on client projects in addition to the human, input and stuff, which
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
very
So then you have the input of all the relevant context for this specific client. So it has all that relevancy. Same way we would have all the relevant content for our team to go manage. And then, yeah, the next step is using the agents to go perform specific tasks. So
yeah.
that's reporting checks, whatever else. Yeah.
Yeah, and another, like, just interesting thing that, is on my to-do list to play with more is I love Claude, artifacts, and you can create landing pages so easily using them, and in one of my AI pure interest groups, this idea came out of that where instead of almost doing like uh, RFP presentations in, Google Slides or any type of slide, just do it. It's almost quicker and faster to put into AI and create it into a landing page
Yes.
and like landing pages over proposals.
Yep.
Like there's interesting like use cases like that of
Yes.
different ways of how people are using it that are clever and efficient and impactful for both people. So anything like that, I get excited about.
Absolutely. That's actually something I learned from another podcast. I don't wanna say the wrong podcast as I've watched a few, but they basically were talking about is that the it creating outputs of PowerPoints and Excel and documents are it can do it, but it's not like those are like human focused platforms to use that these AI platforms are built on like markdown files and code and HTML and CSS and all that. So it produces HTML way better. And we actually started doing that. We did that exact thing already, is
Uh,
that we transitioned our presentations and our pitch decks into HTML format rather than Google Slides or PowerPoint. And we're also transitioning our reports. So our monthly reports are all going to be in HTML format. We can update it and it looks way more advanced. Like PowerPoint, I was thinking about, I was like, PowerPoint and PDFs seems so outdated at this point. Like why would you use those? It's such a clunky format compared to like what a website is.
well, that was one of my vibe coding projects. It was a total gift to one of the partners that I was working with at South by, but they sent me a PDF of their itinerary which I could tell they spent a ton of time on for their delegation that they were bringing. But who was going to look at a PDF in the
Yeah.
middle of South by?
Right.
But the beautiful thing, if you have all the information, these sites, it makes it easier for AI to develop versus like, help me like create the content and then we'll format it. Like, but
Right.
everything was in the PDF. And I just went to Lovable. I was like, turn this PDF into a website. And it was beautiful.
Yes. Nice.
And people were excited, like, oh, this
Yeah.
is amazing. This is so much better than a
It's
PDF.
so much easier to share too, and, like, everybody can open it up. You don't have to use, all these different formats. It makes so much sense. But speaking of that, I don't know if this is kind of where you started, but if you wanna just kinda share kind of this new app solution that you're talking about, was this part of your vibe coding expression and result, or how did this come to be, and could you kinda share with what that is?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I'm not a real developer, so I actually have a development team helping me with this. But they did use some coding, and then they have, like, the actual expertise to come in and make it. But yeah, it came actually out of my AI meetup in November. We have the largest AI meetup in the state of Ohio, 2,000 members, and we meet monthly and get about 150 plus people every single month, at UC Digital Futures, the University of Cincinnati's, Digital Futures Build. And, in November, we're like, "We're a volunteer organization. We're here to serve the community. We're like, what do you guys want as far as programming in 2026?" So 150 people broke out into human huddles to brainstorm programming. And I got some notes, some handwritten notes, some typed notes, some transcriptions, some of the feedback, but not all. But it was super valuable because they wanted peer interest groups and deeper dives. So fast forward to January, we launched that programming. But it was like, this was really great to get the community feedback in this way. So fast forward to March, I had an MVP app to solve the problem where we did a breakout human huddle. And actually the prompt for this one was, what are your thoughts on the future of the evolution of advertising for responsible AI advertising? Of when ads come into the AI chatbots. So then we broke out the room. I think there were 21 human huddles of breakout sessions. And then they talked for 15 minutes, intentional conversation where they're contributing to the conversation, and only one person needs to record it. And then the app gets all of the conversation in real time, and then an insights report of the room or the huddles and the whole room. So it's literally bringing social analytics and kind of ad analytics too a little bit, but social analytics to in real life conversations.
Mm.
And the thesis is, as more bots are surfing the internet than humans, as social listening is a little broken because if something goes viral, does that actually reflect what humans think? Or is that bot amplified or bot manipulated? So, how do you reach humans in 2026?
Right.
In person in trusted communities and going back to trust. I think that's the biggest thing that we've got to solve for in general. And the one really cool thing, so we did one demo of this app. It's called Tide Rise. And the conversations are called Rising Tide Combos because you're contributing. And our motto for Cincy AI, or one of them, is a rising tide lifts all ships.
Mm.
So I was like very intrigued of like community centered AI and like why would people actually want to contribute to a conversation or a data set. And one very cool thing, so I did the demo in March, the first MVP demo, and by our April meetup, which was last week, we already had a paid sponsor for my community, to use. So I've monetized it after one demo.
Nice. Wow.
And how that sponsor came about was they came to me and my co-founder and it's like, we want to improve our training because, what do you guys think your community wants? I was like, well, you can pick our brains or you can ask 150 people in
Mm.
real time, which is so much more rich than just sending a survey. And they're like, oh my God, yes, let's do this. So the other very cool thing, in addition to event organizers engaging their community, if you have a community like a meetup like mine, it's a new way to monetize your community and the collective intelligence of that community. If sponsors want to ask the question,
Mm.
they can now pay for it, and that unlocks new monetization opportunities for communities too. So it's like a win-win. Everyone gets to contribute to the conversation. It benefits the community and the sponsor getting feedback on a question that's important to them.
Wow, so cool. I mean, the speed of what you can create things now, I think is like that's like one of the huge values of doing it, is that like idea November, really thought you're thinking through it in January, launched MVP product by April, monetized by launch in March, monetized by April. Like the speed of efficiency that you can do things is amazing. But that's so cool. So basically it aggregates all these conversations, live conversations in these different little pods that they're in, and then it does like an overall analysis of all the conversations and then finds the common like trends and
Yeah.
responses to everything.
Yeah. And we're it's still in the, version 1 stage, but also, like, the word cloud and some of the real-time analytics will be projected on screen too. So if
Nice.
are in a human huddle but are curious, what other people in the room are talking about, we'll have those. And then you get an insights report right afterwards of the in-person conversations. We're hoping to launch it officially in June at Cincy AI Week, which is our, AI week here in Cincinnati. And we're in talks with another local agency called Niche Fire that they do it's kind of like the evolution of social listening to get more insights on what's coming from a cultural discovery, but
Hmm.
we're in exploration to bring their online insights with our community conversations, because then you'll get what is our community saying and how is that in the context of overall trends from
Mm,
social PR and internet of what's coming around the corner. So then you can really see where your conversation fits into a more national or global conversation too. So
yeah.
lots of
Wow.
exciting things.
Yeah. So cool. I mean, so many different applications you could take that in. And I think more and more like live events and in-person things are going to get so much more valuable as like you don't know who you're talking to online. Is this a bot? Is this a human? What is this? Like, I think there's going to be there's already seen like I think a huge pull back to in-person connection. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think your
yeah, and
solution solves that.
post-COVID, like, we're craving
Right.
in-person connection.
Yep.
Yeah, I love digital and we're able to connect, but there's still like, it would be different if we were in person and really had our, like, in-person energy together.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. This is still missing something around human connection. No, without a doubt. Like everything in person is always going to be better. Last question for you is just if you give yourself your younger self, one piece of advice when you're kind of starting your career out, what would that advice be?
Well, if I could go back in time, it would be buy Bitcoin instead of a crypto kitty,
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
is
that'd be a good one to know.
nothing now. But I was thinking about this ahead of the call. It's like making things simpler and building a good team as far as like an attorney, a tax accountant, and a really good accountant. Because it took me a couple of years to get that right and a few mistakes along the way with not knowing what I didn't know at the time. But yeah, I would say buy Bitcoin.
Yeah. Now you can go to AI and get a lot of answers around accounting and bookkeeping and legal stuff, which is really interesting. But yeah, no doubt, building a strong team around you for sure, around all the probably the areas you're not weak in or don't really want to spend any time on. Like a lot of people don't think about that when they're starting a business. It's like, oh, I know how to do this really well, but then there's all of the business side of things that you have to do. You need to know the legal expectations, how to form the right business entity, how to file taxes and bookkeeping and accounting and everything else. So there's a lot that goes into it, but easier than ever probably to learn those things.
Yeah, very true.
Right on. Well, thanks so much for joining me today. It was an honor having you on the show.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation. So thank you for having me on, James.
Absolutely. We'll catch up later. Bye.